Hello, today I'm with Ali Sanchez, Head of Customer Success at Tonic 3. She's had over a decade working with customers in digital transformation, UX, and development. In addition, she's worked in many industries and verticals, including clients such as Disney and Citibank. I love working with her because at the end of the day, she really understands the technical details and how innovation leads to amazing products. And I'm excited to talk about AI with her.
Thanks for having me, Preston. Well, you don't need an introduction. You have been hosting, I think, 10 out of the 12 webinars we have done so far, but I'll do that anyways. Preston is our SME. He's our Director of Innovation here at Tonic 3. He has had like 25 plus years of experience, with product development, strategy, UX. So it's always a blast to talk to him about technology and figure out new ideas on how we can, bring solutions to our clients. So again, thanks for having me. All right, Preston. So what we're gonna talk about today?
Well, today we're going to be talking about one of those topics that everybody is kind of talking about in the industry right now. It's artificial intelligence. And as always, we're going to talk about it kind of looking through a practical lens and how we can apply some of that technology today, as well as in our own business.
All right. So it's not gonna be only about people that have been using the technology, but also for people that is interested in using the technology to push their business down the innovation path.
Exactly. Yes. Great way to put it. These AI systems, like we're talking about them now, kind of, it almost seems a little bit like they're new, but they're not new. They've been around for quite some time. Most of the, uh, as I mentioned before in the past in some of my other talks around AR, most of the capabilities for planar detection and complicated system understanding of the world around us, those are AIs that are being used. What's the key element here that's different is really that exposure of the capability to everybody from a front end. And that really opens up the doorway. That's what's really the unique moment that we're experiencing right now. So many of these AIs have been around for 5, 10, 15 years plus. But when we put a front end on it and a user experience around it, it becomes a whole different area, a whole different thing. And this is just one great example of how uh, simple UX added to a complex technology opens the doorway for new possibilities.
All right, Preston. So one of the things about this technology that it seems hype is really cool, but I think we should also address, the challenges. And we all know there is a bias with the artificial intelligence, right? So what are your thoughts on what are the biases that we have, how we can, address them and such?
Yeah, I think it's very important when we're looking at any type of technology that we're going to try to integrate into a business that we understand like where are the limitations, right? And first and foremost, there certainly can be a bias because what's programmed into the system is ultimately its level of programming. It's not going to know more than that. Now, as we get more and more complicated with these different types of AIs later on, they'll be able to learn from their own behavior. I think what's interesting is we're already seeing some of these kind of pseudo AI personalities being presented when they give you responses to the frames of the questions and the approaches. And so it's important to understand that it is a tool, much like many of the other tools we use in our arsenal for user experience, strategy, design, digital transformation. It is another research tool that we can use to help us understand and perceive problems for people. And I think that's really cool because we've never had a tool that probably has been this powerful. And with that power is a certain responsibility to understand that the information that is coming from it is important and correct.
I hear you. Yeah, and within this AI development process where we need to include the data collection, the data labeling, all the algorithm design, and all the deployment system, we can get to some discriminatory, sorry, consequences. So I think, as you mentioned, we do have a powerful tool, so we need to start training ourselves to be critical about what of the solutions or what of the answers that the tool provides us is actually true or is actually not biased as we are talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's really one of the struggles I think a lot of people are going to have is they're going to initially look at the output of this and take it as the only truth. So it's something that definitely you have to take into consideration. And there'll be new fields of development that are going to be specifically just around these types of things as we move into opening up the user experience to the general everyday user, to the businesses, and then open up the APIs that allow for these systems to be connected together.
I agree. I mean, I think diversity, diversity on the information that we are getting and how we are training the tool and how we re-ask and ask again the same question in different ways will allow us to have some options, again, to be critical. So besides diversity of the data, what do you think could be another solution to try to work around the bias that we have with the technology?
Well, I think part of that is really kind of fundamental to what we do is research. You're looking at different types of topics and different experts and authorities on those types of topics, and trying to see where like opinions align, but also where facts align too. And then you're really trying to say, hey, from the output that I got from this system, does it really uh, align with what the general majority looks at? So we're very deep in our UX process at the core, really, of even in our innovation and creation process of using scientific methodologies and approaches to understand user experience and journeys, pain points, and problems across the way. So it's a fantastic tool, and we're just now scratching the surface of the possibilities.
Can you share, a little bit of which are the tools that you are using currently, your favorite AI tools?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of new ones coming into play kind of every day, and I think what we're seeing is it is very disruptive. Specifically, most people understand what ChatGPT is now. It's a fairly common term outside of our normal areas of technology. People are asking questions about it, what can it do and what is it, right? I think there's also, of course, Google just came out with their Bard API, and then Bing is coming out with another version with their ChatGPT. But then there's also the image generation systems around Midjourney and DALL-E and Canvas. There's a whole bunch of different types. And what we're really seeing is these very specialized subset of AI that are for particularly one purpose. They're designed for one purpose. But what's happening is, as you start to use it, you start to go, oh, but could I use it for that as well? And you start to push the boundaries of how you can use the system. And so your original intent for building out your framework of questioning and your approach to it often becomes changed because you're opened up in your mind to think about, oh, well, what if I did this? Using these types of AI generative image systems to help in the creative ideation process early on, and saying, instead of being stuck with a blank page, let's generate something that maybe says, hey, give me a scene of a blank page. It's very tongue-in-cheek, but believe it or not, it gives you some ideas to roll off of and some things to think about from in a design process. It's just a couple examples there.
Sure. No, I love it. And it's so true that, when you have a blank page, it's hard to start. So having a start is really good baseline, just to get the thought process going. For me also, ChatGPT is going to be the go-to answer. But I think the ways we use the technology is how we get the most rich experience out of it. I was telling you the other day, about how we can, from the customer success area where we do not have, all the technical knowledge available, having these tools give us a higher, level of knowledge. So if we need to understand better, about database migrations process, that is something that salespeople probably don't handle as much as SMEs. But with these technologies, we can ask, what's the process? What are going to be the main challenges? What are statistics saying about pricing? About what should be the first steps of the research when we are doing this analysis? So definitely using the tool that has a lot of knowledge and using that, to get closer to SMEs. I think that is also a really good aspect for the tool. And then backwards, I also was trying to explain to a client, really technical terms that the client did not understand. So the tool is giving me analogies, examples, and ways how to frame information in
Yeah.
such a manner that different profiles can understand it. So, translating from basic to technology and also translating from really technological aspect to natural language, I think that is really cool feature that we haven't had before.
Yeah, and we're just kind of scratching the surface right now with some of these capabilities because a lot of these engines, ChatGPT, et cetera, they're based upon previous iterations and second generations and third generations of the AI that's underneath them. And so what I'm really looking forward to, or I'm excited about, is when we start to open up the APIs for these. And as I mentioned in a conversation I was having online the other day, is when we have the output from one AI be able to be the input for another AI directly from that can really start to produce some kind of amazing possibilities. But it also can be something that can really help businesses in processes that may be complex, because there is a lot of challenge in understanding how do you go from step 1 to step 42, right? For example, in whatever you're trying to build into your organization, whether it be data transformation or whether it be content generation for a certain subset of a small target audience. Often, we can only hit a certain audience when we're trying to produce an experience, even a body of content. And so these types of systems can help us hit a larger target audience potentially, because we normally would not have the resources or the capability to go after that particular area. If you think about it from a marketing strategy perspective, I think from a development perspective, there's Copilot. We talked about a few of these before, right? Copilot, and even ChatGPT supports, I think, 10 to 15 different types of programmatic languages. And the way that I look at that from an innovation standpoint is I'm always trying to rapidly create something to understand, does it have water? Does it have weight? Could I continue to build upon this type of functionality and ultimately move it out of R&D and move it into a product pipeline? But you have to understand a lot of different concepts and a lot of different areas across the spectrum of technology. So when you use these types of systems in that way, framing questions, posing them as certain to look at certain types of technology and the feasibility of it, it really causes you to go, oh wow, look how much more output I can now produce. Of course, you still have to find a way to manage all of that output and all of the results and such. But it does really open the doorway for people to feel like they're empowered, both in the business or even if they're using it from a professional capacity or from a personal capacity. So, Ali, I knew you and I, in our day-to-day work, we've been looking at these technologies, but we've been doing more than looking at these technologies. We have both found ways in how we interact and how we provide solutions and approaches to clients. You want to talk a little bit about how you have been using AI to kind of help in that kind of customer success process?
So when we get a new prospect, we always have the same conversations, both you and me. Who is the user? What are the pain points and needs? But with GPT or any AI technology, we can go from the customer success area one step further. So we understand. Let's use one example of any client that is going to have a physical event and wants to introduce augmented reality into the event, I don't know, to get more engagement, to get more data or such. So AI has helped me, for example, so I already identify the user and we can get some ideas. So how can I implement augmented reality experiences within a 60 minutes event? And it's going to give you it's not going to give you the solution, of course, but it's going to give you a list of 10 items that once I have them, I can go to you and say like, hey, Preston, what do you feel about these 10 experiences? And then we're going to filter 5 of them, and the other 5, we're going to start working. I think it goes back to what we were discussing about the blank page. I don't go to you, just with the problematic, but I go to you with a problematic and some solutions that we can, build upon.
Yeah, I think that's a great example right there. In that particular example, it's one that we actually discussed and actually happened. It's you came to me with those different types of approaches. We took a look at it, and then not going to be familiar with all of the methodologies or approaches that we could use from the technology standpoint. So I took some of those outputs from what you had generated, and I went out and I did some investigation to look at, how do we manage the cookie state appropriately? How do we handle a frictionless user experience? What are some of the ways that we could do some pre-generative content? How could we approach that, right? And so we have a lot of those skill set capabilities within house, but when you're thinking about blending multiple forms of technology together, that's when you start to run into some of the technical challenges. And so we've been really good, and we have that as kind of our core process of approaching solutioning in a way that we can look at these different technologies and use these AI inputs, these AI systems to say, hey, how can you help us feel better informed, even to support our clients and their needs across whatever the solutioning might be. And I think that's really cool because we haven't had, to that degree, another form that can do it as rapidly. But it's the same thing as you have to understand what is the question you're trying to solve for.
Linguistic is key here, right?
Yes, it is. I think that's the extremely important point that you just called out is I liken this to the holodeck. Any Star Trek fans out there, is you're often stating the framework of what you're trying to get an answer from. So you're kind of saying, hey, put this information together in this way, in this way, in this way, right? So you are constructing that, but you don't necessarily know what the output is going to be until the computer runs the program. And you hope that it's going to be right. But I'll tell you, in these early stages, it's not always right. You have to look at these technologies in a way that you're not afraid of them. I really believe in embracing them as soon as it makes the right sense to embrace them, because I'd always rather be ahead of using these technologies and the potentiality as opposed to trying to play catch up. And that's one of those things that we definitely work with businesses and helping them with their digital business transformation, is thinking about how do you use technology not to just solve the needs for right now, but how do you solve the needs for the future?
I think that links up perfectly with, our agile process, our methodologies, because the first answer that you're going to get from AI system probably is going to go wrong. And I mean,
Yes.
I bet you on that. So I think that is where you're going to want to start re-asking questions to the AI system and iterating with it, and the richness, again, comes out of you asking the right questions and re-asking and asking to go in depth. Now give me more statistics about it. Now give me the benefits about it. Now give me the cons about it. So you will be building the right answer, but it's not going to be the first, and probably it's not going to be the 10th either. It's about, iterating. So agile processes and our methodologies work perfectly to get from the first point of data to the data that you are actually gonna take advantage of. So
Yeah.
when you mentioned that we should not fear this technology, I agree 100%, because there is no way AI will be able to replace humans.
Yeah, definitely. Even just to add one more note to that, when you think about like expertise and subject matter experts, it's still and will be for quite some time extremely crucial for people to understand and look at the output and say, yeah, that really is the right solution, right? Even when you look at some of these amazing code AIs that are out right now, um, they'll help you to generate, code and structures, but there's no guarantee that the output is optimized. Uh, and you will run into errors. I mean, I've done it a number of times now, and I was doing one the other day, experimenting with something in particular, and fairly basic JavaScript, and the program forgot to define the variable. Pretty simple coding concept, right? And my response to the AI was, "Oh, can you please figure out where this error is in this structure?" And it was like, "Oh, sorry about that. I forgot to define the variable." So that was kind of interesting because I mean that's something very similar to what would happen in a human situation like that as well. So it was a moment that stood out for me, and I was like, okay, yeah, these are not perfect. So you have to understand that. And I think the other aspect that's really cool is we're just kind of starting to see how this can impact other industries as well. And there's going to be a lot of experimentation, trying to figure out, how's this going to work in the music industry? How's it going to work in oil and gas? And I think when you put a firm strategy and roadmap in place, just like whether we're doing an augmented or a virtual reality solution, we're looking to understand, is that the right solution for the product that you need? And that's where I think it really comes into play here. Is it needs to be part of your digital plan. It needs to be part of your digital transformation. You can't ignore it. It's hitting that breakwave point where people are expecting these types of easy to use experiences and expecting your systems to become smarter. And you can't just build a smart system. You have to think about, how are people trying to use it?
Sure. User experience at the front end, right?
Right, exactly.
So what do you think could be one use case for AI applied to education and businesses?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about that because in my own pursuit for knowledge, I'm constantly trying to learn new things and to help both our business as well as our clients. And one of the things that I saw that was really interesting is even when you're trying to learn a programming language, it's not going to replace the need for complex programmers. But if you're learning and you're trying to educate yourself, not just on programming, but other topics, you can kind of use it as a tutor to kind of help you work your way through it. So what was most interesting when I was approaching a language I haven't done a lot of work within particular is, hey, can you explain to me why this function is being written this way, right? Can you explain to me why I need to do it, why I need to do this call before I make this next call? And it is a way that really helped me to go look at this new coding structure that I've never done before and say, oh, I have an understanding of it now. I feel competent enough to ask the right questions to other programmers. I feel competent enough to say, hey, when I'm doing this particular type of method and I'm building out it this way, is this the appropriate way to do it? This is what I was shown. Can you give any more information on that? And you can apply that to really all kinds of learning when you think about it from an education perspective, because it starts to help you in a way in which you learn. And that's where I think is what's going to open the doorway when we can connect these different APIs together is right now we're really getting a lot of text-based output from these systems. But when you can connect a generative text-based AI to a generative music-based AI to a generative-based image-based AI like DALL-E or Midjourney or any of those, and then push it even one tier more where you're now building out whole three-dimensional systems, the level and the way in which we learn can really change.
Trying to make AI talk to other AI, right? So the example that comes to my mind where you're talking about, Midjourney and, different immersive environments is to give you an example, right? So let's imagine a prospect that is going to need some web AR interactions for any type of event. So in the future, I imagine, you can ask one AI, with a bunch of APIs obviously connected, but to ideate, multiple types of solutions with web AR. You can ask Midjourney or any similar tool to create the 3D models for that interaction. And then you can ask Copilot, for example, or any other coding tool to type the code to make the web AR solution that the AI came up with, to use the 3D model that was generated, and then to come up with the code that is going to be the initial code of the experience. And again, that saves you maybe 1-2 weeks of hard work, and it's going to give you, those 2 weeks to improve it. So 2 weeks ahead of the work, and you're going to be able to just make it better. It doesn't mean that the tool is going to give you the final solution. It's just going to give you more time to perfect that solution in a way.
When you look at one of the biggest challenges that I've seen personally in my many years of managing agile teams is, if you're in the middle of a sprint and you get stuck on a bug, that throws off your time scale completely, right? But what if you could take that snippet of code and drop it off to, Copilot or ChatGPT or one of these and say, hey, there is an error here. I've been looking at it for 6 hours. I can't figure it out. And that comes from a true story. We've done that probably about 10 to 15 times now, where we've been able to solve a bug, which could be a complete roadblock to the way we produce a product in a sprint. And we're moving on. We're moving on with the next pieces of the code. And then, the team is able to complete that. We're able to share that information and that knowledge. And then it becomes, that's a huge time saver to the project. It's huge because we have all in this space, technological people, developers, innovators, run into those challenges that are beyond our knowledge, and today people are like, well, I'm going to go search on Stack Overflow or whatever. That's the way we were doing it. Now there's a new possibility on how you can approach that, and I think that's really cool because it enables creators to continue to be creators, and it enables developers to be more advanced developers.
And I think we can call it a wrap. Thank you so much, Preston, for this wonderful talk. And thanks to our audience, of course, for tuning in into our first bit-sized digital transformation series. I hope you found it informative and engaging. And if you have any feedback, questions, suggestions for future episodes, we would love to hear from you. So please feel free to reach out through our website at tonic3.com, our social media channels, or email at tonic3@tonic3.com. And until next time, stay curious and keep on learning. Hope to hear from you. Bye-bye.